Okay.
Grandpa, will this be our Christmas tree?
Someday. Come on, Katie. Let's go. Great job. I'm really proud of you guys. Look how big it's got. Ah, that's great. It's a beautiful tree.
Is it ready yet?
Someday. Come on, let's go back to the house. That is a good tree. It really is. Is it ready yet? Someday. Come on.
You think it's ready?
Someday.
Well, good morning. I want to say hi to everyone here, and I want to say hi to everyone joining us online. My name is Matt Van Cleve. If we haven't met yet, I'm the teaching pastor here at Blue Oaks, and we are in our series, Home for Christmas. And it's a weird thing, that phrase can evoke so much longing, but also fear, because often there will be someone sitting around our table who has caused pain. We go home for Christmas and it's like there is this difficult person there. Maybe there's a difficult relationship, someone is irritating, there's something about someone in your family that just rubs you the wrong way. This message is about how do we prepare for that. Now, we need to love difficult people in our everyday lives, but the holidays are a time when we need to especially work hard at this. Let me start by saying who this message is not for. This message is not for you if when you go home, you have no difficult people in your life. If everyone who will be sitting around the table this Christmas is a person of enormous emotional intelligence and relational maturity, this message is not for you. If no one around the table is hard to track with, if there won't be any kind of conflict, if there is like no one gets sarcastic, if no one has messages with like hints of bigotry or political opinion that are meant to create an argument, if no one talks too much or drinks too much or smokes too much or brags too much or is opinionated, if there have never been any relational difficulties in your family, no divorces, the children have always only felt encouragement by their parents, never any pressure, the parents have never felt anything but joy in the choices of their children, no addictions, no job problems, no insults, no one who doesn't show up because they live too far away, no crying babies, no difficulty in any way. If there's just no difficulty in your family, this message is not for you. In fact, this church might not be for you. Because in this church, no one has it all together. Would you just look around you for a moment? Just look at some of the faces around you. If this is your first time in church, maybe in a really long time, and you feel kind of out of place because you think we're all the good people and you're the bad person, you need to know that the people surrounding you who have out-sinned you 10 to 1. Don't let all these pretty faces fool you. All right, so for everyone living in the real world who need to hear this message, I have a video clip for you. I love it. You may or may not. It's from the movie Home Alone. A lot of people watch this movie around Christmas time. There's a kid named Kevin, and he loves his family, but his family drives him crazy, and he has a wish that he would make them all go away. And then he wakes up, and they're actually all gone. And the spectrum of emotions around this one scene is incredible. Check this out.
I made my family disappear.
Kevin, you're completely helpless.
No, Kevin, you're what the French call les incompétents.
Kevin, I'm going to feed you to my tarantula.
Kevin, you are such a disease.
There are 15 people in this house, and you're the only one who has to make trouble.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
I made my family disappear.
Okay, so this message is for anyone who has ever thought, I would like to make someone in my family disappear. You can actually do that. The word for that is murder. Part of what's striking about Jesus' teaching is he says, even if you want to murder someone, if you just think, I wish this person did not exist, that's actually not an indication of that person's problem. It's an indication of your heart problem. So I want to talk today about what are the gifts that we can give to someone else to maybe help them change. It's kind of a weird thing. Even if you love someone, if you go up to them and say, I know you ought to change, here's what it is, they don't receive that all that well. There are 3 wonderful gifts that flow out of the character of Jesus. And we're going to get to them, but I want to get to them in a different way today. I want to start by talking about people in the world where Jesus was born. So people in the world that Jesus was born into. So many people have this unreal, kind of cleaned up view of the manger scene and the world in which Jesus was born into. And the problem with that is we start to think, if Jesus had to sit at my table, like he wouldn't be too optimistic about, all of us having this ability to love everyone. Well, we're going to look at this Christmas story through a different lens today, and we're going to look at the difficult people who would have been at the birth of Jesus so that we're ready to think about how to love the difficult people around our table. All right, so here we go. The first group of people I want to look at are the disappointed people. Some people are going to feel like, man, I wish my life didn't turn out this way. There will be kind of a heaviness to them, and that will have a way of infecting everyone. There were disappointed people at the very first Christmas. There was a couple, Zechariah and Elizabeth. What we know about them is they were very old, and they tried to love God as best as they could, but they never had children. So infertility was what they were dealing with. And that's a very painful thing. Some of you know that pain. And Christmas can make that even more painful. In the ancient world, added to that was the reality that barrenness had a stigma attached to it. The assumption was that if anyone didn't have kids, it's because you displeased God in some way. There was something wrong. Maybe you didn't have enough faith. In particular, in the ancient world, if the couple didn't have children, the general assumption was it was the woman's fault. There was a story in the ancient world of a king who took 7 different wives and none of them had children. But the assumption was still that all of them, all 7 of them, were at fault. Like it couldn't have been his fault because he's a man, because he's the king. Zechariah and Elizabeth would be a disappointed couple. They would be old and they would have to live with, what do you do every day, every year? We pray and nothing happens. And all the people look at us and they think something must be wrong with you. What kind of strain would that put on their relationship? One day they find out actually that they were going to have a child, and you think that this would make everything great, but even then it was very complex. An angel came to Zechariah. He's a priest. He was supposed to be a man of great faith. He was serving in the temple. The angel said to him, Zechariah, you and Elizabeth are going to have a child. And you think that Zechariah's response would be, well, that's great. Thank you, God. Zechariah asked the angel, how can I be sure of this? I'm an old man and my wife is well along in years. So he doesn't believe the angel. The angel said to him, I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and to tell you this good news. And now you will be silent and not be able to speak until the day this happens, because you did not believe my words, which will come true at their appointed time. So now Zechariah can't speak for 9 months because of his lack of faith. And I wonder if Elizabeth was tempted to say to him all these years, like, we thought this was my fault. Like, you're the priest, and you can't even believe an angel. Like, that's why you're not able to say anything. Like, every day he comes home, she's like, how did work go? He can't say anything. There's no ESPN. He can't do anything but listen to Elizabeth's commentary on how things are going in the world. All right, so that's the first couple. They were disappointed people. The second group of people are stressed people. There are going to be stressed people at your table this Christmas. And I want to tell you about two people who lived in some of the most stressful conditions in the history of the world. Again, when you look at the manger scene, Mary and Joseph almost always look like there's this like serene or blissful like presence about them. All is calm, all is bright. Think about what's going on in their lives. This was the world Jesus was entering. Mary was about 14 years old. She was engaged. And this is what we're told happens. Before they came together, so before they were husband and wife, before they were sexually involved with one another, Mary, was found to be pregnant. Because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly. Before they were sexually involved with each other, Mary was found to be pregnant. So who found out Mary was pregnant? Mary did. Now, that wasn't supposed to be a trick question. I thought you would understand about how all this works. Mary would have been the one to find out that she was pregnant, and she would have told Joseph. Of course, we don't know all of the details, but I imagine she would have said to Joseph, an angel came to me. Joseph, I'm pregnant. He's the Son of God. Joseph, we are going to raise him together. And apparently, Joseph doesn't believe her because he knows she's pregnant, but he's planning on divorcing her. What does it mean is going on between the two of them? Like, Joseph says to her, really, Mary? Like, you're sticking to this whole angel story? Really? He says he's going to divorce her. Now, you can imagine that Mary is hurting at this point, and then Joseph gets a visit from the angel. And then he goes back to Mary and he says, all right, I'm having second thoughts about this whole divorce thing. I think we should get married. Now, I don't know how she responded, but I know in my marriage, if I believe a stranger, even if that stranger happens to be an angel, and I don't believe my wife, like this is just not going to go over real well. In addition to that, we're told Mary and Joseph were from Galilee. So in ancient Israel, Galilee was a rural place. It would have been considered stricter than other parts of the country, and so their standards about sexuality would have been much more conservative, and so they're going to have a baby, and everyone is going to know about it, and Mary would be judged for being unfaithful to Joseph, or Mary and Joseph would be judged for being unfaithful to God. And they're going to Bethlehem because it's tax time. Rome is taxing everyone, which would mean now they're going to experience financial stress as well. We know that they're a poor couple. We know that when they go to the temple after Jesus was born, all they have to give are doves, and that's what the poorest people would give. And so we know they would be under financial pressure, and it's tax season. That wouldn't help. Joseph makes Mary go with him to Bethlehem. It's not clear whether or not she would have been legally obligated to make that trip with him, but he makes her do that. She's probably in the last month of her pregnancy. She's about to give birth any day. I mean, it's difficult to make trips like that in our day. Like in that day, in bad weather, on difficult roads, the way they would have had to travel, I mean, that would have been a nightmare. They get to Bethlehem. They have nowhere to stay. Again, I imagine what happens in their relationship is Mary responds like, Joseph, really? Like, I know you're not a planner, but like no hotel reservations? Like not even an Airbnb, you know? Like no phone call to a family member, nothing, no place to stay. It gets worse. There's another character in the Christmas story, which brings us to the third group of difficult people at the birth of Jesus, unsafe people. We talk about this a lot in our day. I want to be around safe people. I go back home and there's someone who's sitting around the table who is unsafe. Now, whoever your unsafe person is, I doubt they're anywhere near Herod the Great. And by the way, if you have a family member where their nickname ends in the Great, it's probably an indication there's some ego issues going on. Herod decides he doesn't want there to be another king in the world. He wants to be the only king, and so he decides he's going to kill every infant 2 years old and younger in the whole region of Bethlehem where Mary and Joseph are. Imagine living in that. And then here's what happens. An angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Again, think about this. This is a real story. These are real people. Get up, he said, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him. They not only have all of this stuff going on, like a scandal because people don't understand what happened. Mary is pregnant and she's not married yet. They have financial pressure. They have to raise the Son of God. Joseph isn't the real father. They have all of that pressure. And now Herod, the king, is trying to kill their firstborn son, who happens to be the Son of God, and they're supposed to protect him. And they have to leave. Not just their house, not just their tribe, not just their family. They have to leave their country, their culture, their language, and flee to Egypt, which, by the way, is where the Israelites escaped after being in slavery. There's no more like hospitality to the Israelites now than there was when the Israelites were in slavery. They have to live in a foreign country where people don't want them around. Immigration was not an easy thing that day. So what would their lives be like? Some of you know that there's a thing called the stress index. It was created by a couple of psychologists over 50 years ago. Well, there's a guy named David Schlegel who calculated how much stress Mary and Joseph would have been under at this point in their life. And if you've taken this test, you know that it assigns a certain number of points to different experiences in your life. And if you get up to like 300 points or more, then you've reached like the high stress mark on this index. You're 80% more likely to have a major health breakdown if you're higher than 300 points. Well, Schlegel tried to assess this. If Joseph and Mary were able to take this stress inventory back in the ancient world, what would it be? Well, they were recently married. That gives them 50 points. Lost a job. Joseph had to leave his job and go to Nazareth, so that's 50 more points. Pregnancy, yes. Major financial change, yes. In-law troubles, definitely. Move, yeah, they had to flee to Egypt. Gain a new family member, yes. Outstanding achievement, Mary gave birth to the Son of God. Major holiday, they invented Christmas. Targeted for death by an egomaniac ruler. That's not even like a point total on the test. But Schlegel figured they had more than 450 points on this stress index. So when we look at the manger scene at Mary and Joseph, and we think it's so peaceful, you know, like all is calm, all is bright, a little town of Bethlehem, away in a manger, I don't think so. And then there's a fourth group of difficult people at the birth of Jesus, different people. People with different values and cultural differences and personality differences. There are three characters called the Magi. We get the word magic from that same word. We don't know a whole lot about where they were from. In the Gospel of Matthew, it says they came from the east of Jerusalem, from the east to Jerusalem. So they were probably from Persia or ancient Babylon, somewhere around there. They were not Israelites. They did not worship Israel's God. They were engaged in astrology. They were following a star, and astrology was forbidden in Israel. And so these magi are different people. In Israel, when Christians told the story of Christmas, they would do artistic portrayals on the walls of the different characters. And in one early church in Bethlehem, they depicted the Magi on one of the walls in their church. And they didn't look like anyone in Israel. This is how they were depicted. They don't dress like the Israelites do. They were wearing trousers. The Israelites didn't. They had belted tunics. Israelites didn't wear that. They had Phrygian caps. Israelites didn't wear those. In 614, an army from Persia in present-day Iran and Iraq, they came to Palestine, and they destroy all kinds of churches because the people are all different than them. But they get to this church in Bethlehem where they see these characters in the church, and they literally don't destroy this church because they say they look like us, they dress like us. Like, we're not going to destroy them. That's in 614. Not much has changed in the last 1,400 years. You understand, having a world that's crying out for peace is not something that we invented. There are going to be different people around your table. And the fifth group of difficult people at the birth of Jesus are embarrassing people. This might be you. It might be me. Like in the Christmas story, it's the shepherds. We talked about them last week. We don't need to spend too much time around them today. Shepherds were considered to be despised people. They were from the despised occupations. They were looked down on. No one wanted shepherds around. They were considered untrustworthy. They couldn't bear witness in a court of law. If the shepherds were in the stable at the birth of Christ, Mary would be saying to Joseph, "You better check the baby. Don't let them steal the baby." That's the shepherds. They would have been embarrassing people. The sixth group of difficult people at the birth of Jesus were untactful people. At every table, in every family, there will be someone who just blurts stuff out and makes everyone feel uncomfortable. And at the birth of Jesus, there was an old man named Simeon. This group is usually old men. When Joseph and Mary bring baby Jesus to the temple, Simeon says to Mary, now imagine you're Mary, like you're young, this young mom, 14-year-old with your firstborn child, just trying to keep it all together. Simeon gives her this prophecy. This child is destined to cause the falling and rising of many in Israel, and will be a sign that will be spoken against, so that the thoughts of many hearts will be revealed. And a sword will pierce your own soul too. All right, have a nice day. Good luck with that. Now she has to kind of carry all this around with her. All right, there's a seventh group of difficult people, and that is crazy people. Everyone has someone in their family who everyone else thinks, man, this person has lost their marbles. Like they're just out of their mind. And in Jesus' family, there was one person who everyone in the family would have thought this way about. And it might surprise you, but this is after Jesus grew up. Again, these are real people. This is recorded in the New Testament. Then Jesus entered a house, and again, a crowd gathered so that he and his disciples were not able to eat. When his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him, for they said, he is out of his mind. Like, do you know what they're saying? Jesus has lost his mind. He needs someone to take custody of him. So we are going to come and do that. They actually literally tried to take custody of Jesus against his will. What will he do about it? Again, this is in the New Testament. Then Jesus' mother and brothers arrived, standing outside. They sent someone in to call him. A crowd was sitting around him, and they told him, your mother and brothers are outside looking for you. Jesus does not say, okay, everyone hang on. I'm going to go talk to my mom. What he says is, who are my brother and my mother and my brothers? And then he looked at those seated in a circle around him, and he said, here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother. How do you think that made Mary feel? You see, we talk about family values and so on. I mean, he was radically redefining the family. We have this idea that if I could just live in that group with Jesus, like everything was easy for him. If I could just live with him, then like everything would be easy. It's not true. because he lived in the real world with real difficult people. All right, now, in the time that we have left, I want you to think about 3 gifts that Jesus gave the difficult people in his life. And I want you to consider to give these same gifts to the difficult people in your life this Christmas. This is in the Christmas story in the Gospel of John. John talks about this from a heavenly perspective. The Word, Jesus, became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and the only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. So the first two gifts are right there. And they're part of Jesus' character. Jesus is full of grace. Jesus is full of truth. So this Christmas, try to extend grace. Jesus did this all the time. A woman was brought to Jesus. She was caught in the act of adultery. The religious leaders want to condemn her. They want to stone her. They want to kill her. Jesus says, all right, well, go ahead. Whoever is without sin, you be the first to throw a stone. And they all walk away. Jesus straightened up and asked her, woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? No one, sir, she said. Then neither do I condemn you, Jesus declared. For the Son of Man did not come to condemn the world, but to save it. Jesus is full of grace. It doesn't matter how much people have achieved or how well they've managed their life or their relationships or their finances. Like there is no one in your life who does not need grace. And you have it to give. I was talking to a guy who is in his mid-50s about losing his mom. She died recently. I asked, what do you miss most about your mom? And it was interesting. He said, I miss the way she just loved me unconditionally. She always accepted me. If I messed up, like whatever I did or didn't do, I just knew that my mom was in my corner. My dad could be a perfectionist and I could feel like I have to live up to his expectations, but with my mom, I mean, she just loved me no matter what. People just never get too old for that. Grace is so powerful. When I give the gift of grace, what I'm saying is, I am in no position to judge you. And you may look at someone and say, you know what, they don't deserve it. Of course they don't. Neither do I. Only God knows what anyone deserves. But in my blindness, sometimes I think I do. But I don't know what your background is. I don't know what your wounds are. I don't know what your hurts are. I don't know what your scars are. I don't know where you grew up. I don't know anything about your genes. You know, we all have this genetic predisposition. You know, some of our genetic predispositions help us in very profound ways. Some of them, I mean, we fight against in very deep ways. And we think we can judge people. We have no idea. Some people are just grateful and joyful people, like right out of the womb. Some people whine and complain. And we sometimes feel like we can judge them. This is so interesting. I just read this a couple weeks ago. It's from a neuroscience journal. When we think about what makes someone grateful, there's a variation of a particular gene, CD38. A mutation of that gene is associated with a heightened capacity for gratitude. No one deserves this. But some of you have this. Some of you have been grateful your whole life long, and you wonder why. Like you're a mutant, that's why. Like you were born that way. And maybe you didn't know that, and right now you're thinking, man, I'm so grateful that I was born with those genes. And some of you complain all the time, and now you're thinking, why didn't I get one of those genes? Like, that's not fair that I don't have that. I'm in no position to judge anyone. Only God knows. When you give grace, recognize that and say, I don't know your whole story, but I want to love you. I want to accept you. I want to be in your corner. I want to be for you. It's grace. Jesus was full of grace. But not just grace. He was also full of truth. Grace without truth will not produce growth. And truth can be hard sometimes. A lot of times someone will need truth, and in a moment, you just won't know what to say. I heard a story from a woman who was in a grocery store. She was in line at a grocery store. It was a long line. An associate at the store helped this very elderly, quite frail old man to the front of the line so that he would not have to wait. And there was a young guy in the back of the line who was not very happy about this. He was in a hurry and he wanted everyone to know, and so he said in a voice loud enough for everyone in the grocery store to hear, "I can't believe we're just letting this guy cut in line. I guess that's what happens when you get old. I guess when you get old, the rules don't apply to you. I guess that's just the way it works." And it was this tense moment when you just don't know what to say. So this woman turned around, and in a moment of, I think, divine inspiration, she just blew raspberries at him. Like sometimes, truth doesn't even need words. It's kind of like a moment of prophetic inspiration. You know what I often find is, I'm great at telling people truth in my imagination. I have conversations, I was doing it this morning, with someone in my mind, and I will be unbelievably articulate. I will say exactly what I want to say, and they will be convinced. And they will say, "You're right, I need to change. Thanks for telling me this truth." That will happen in my imagination. But when I'm looking at someone face to face, it will feel awkward, and I won't know what to say. And sometimes I'll find the right words when I'm angry. And if I'm angry, what I do is I say way too much, and I probably do a whole lot more damage than good. Paul says, no. When Jesus is in your life, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect a mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. We are going to grow, but we can't do it without grace or love, and we can't do it without truth. So the first gift is grace. So give grace this Christmas. The second gift is truth. There will be someone who is hurting people, who talks too much, who interacts in ways that are awkward, who is clingy and needy, and they've done things that are unfair or harmful or dishonest or damaging. Maybe they have a drinking problem. Will anyone love them enough to speak the truth? Speak the truth in love. All right, the third gift is time. I give people grace enough to love them. I give people truth enough so that they can live in reality, so that they can look in the mirror. And then I recognize they're not going to change overnight. And I get so impatient. I can be frustrated with someone for so long. I can feel like because I talked to them one time, well, they're not doing anything. I tried once. And I'm such an idiot sometimes. These patterns, just like I have these patterns that have been going on for days or weeks or months or years, they're ingrained in me. And I sometimes think because I had one semi-articulate conversation, it's supposed to change that person overnight. And if it doesn't, I just give up on them. And I don't know about you, but I can be so impatient. I went home for lunch just a couple weeks ago, and I was going to have a turkey sandwich, but there wasn't turkey. It was all in the freezer. And so I put it in the microwave for about 60 seconds, and I got it out. It was still frozen. And I thought, this is going to take 15 minutes to defrost this turkey in the microwave, and I don't have 15 minutes. And I literally stood at the sink with a knife trying to chip off pieces of frozen turkey because I didn't have time to put it in the microwave. Am I the only one who has ever done anything like this? Am I the only crazy one in this room? And then I have people in my life, and I just want to microwave them. Not literally, you understand? Well, sometimes maybe. I just want to be able to say one thing, have one conversation, say one word. Why aren't they different? Why don't they change? Well, I guess it didn't work. Jesus tells a great story one time about a man who planted a fig tree. He goes to it. It's been years. There's no figs. He says to the gardener, cut it down. There's no good in it. The gardener says, no, just let's give it another year. Let's dig around it. Let's fertilize it. I'm going to work on this tree. Don't cut it down yet. And of course, the gardener in this story is God. He's still at work in our lives. This Christmas, think about someone in your life. It might be multiple somebodies who need grace. Maybe they don't deserve it. And I get it. I don't deserve it either. Give the gift of grace. Also give them the gift of truth. And you might be scared to say it. Give it anyway. Speak the truth in love. And then give the gift of time. Don't give up on people. Because you're not in charge of them. God is at work in that person. Just like he's at work in you. Just like he's at work in me. All you can bring to the table is you. All you can bring to the table is your heart. So bring your heart to the table. And the question is, will you bring for these difficult people that you want to love, these imperfect, real people, will you give them the gifts of grace and truth and time? It's kind of a funny thing, because when we were in church and we're talking about God, it's a whole lot easier to have these thoughts and feelings like, yeah, I want to be like that. I want to be like that kind of person. But then when you get to the table and that person is sitting right in front of you, and then these thoughts come to you. Can I make my family disappear? This may be the most important thing that I want you to hear. You are not grace, truth, and time factories. You can be a conduit, though, if you want to start this Christmas by letting God love you, letting God fill you. There's this wonderful verse in Isaiah where God is talking to Israel, much like God is talking to you and me today. They're living in a real world with not much peace and a lot of stress, and they don't know if they're loved. See, I can't really give love to someone else if I don't know if I'm going to have enough love coming my way. And God says to them, can a mother forget the baby at her breast and have no compassion on the child she has born? Though she may forget, I will not forget you. See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. And that's what Jesus is doing. He was born in a manger. He lived with disappointed, stressed out, unsafe, different, and embarrassing people. And he gave them grace, and he gave them truth, and he gave them time. And then when he went to the cross and he stretched out his arms, and these big, cruel spikes were driven into his hands, your name got engraved on his palm. And we are not our own. And we come to him and we ask him, would you be this gift giver? Would you make me a conduit for your gifts of love and grace and time? I'm telling you, this Christmas could be one like you've never experienced. And I don't know how they're going to respond. I don't know what they're going to do. But I'm talking to you. All right, let me pray for you. And would you just bow your heads and just close your eyes right now? Would you just think about that person? Maybe it's a relationship that's just really bumpy and scratchy and difficult and awkward, and you're not sure what to do. Would you just talk to God about that? Maybe it's way deeper. Maybe there's some hurt that just goes real deep. This wound is severe. This pain is real raw. And you have no idea where to start. Well, God knows. You don't have to figure all of that out. Would you just say, God, would you help me right now? Would you help me to be a conduit of your love and your grace and your truth? Help me give people time. Just let go of the bitterness and resentment that maybe has been keeping you in this prison or in this fear or in this anxiety. Now, God, in the stillness of this moment right now, we remember that our peace, it does not come from without, but it comes from within. It comes from you, God. You are our peace. And I just pray in this room right now, God, that there would be this ministry of healing and grace and truth and love that would be this miracle of Jesus all over again today, in our day, this Christmas. And I ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.